Welcome to TradeNBI.com. This is Jonas Reports for the 17th. Not a lot of action on Friday there. It was sort of an inside move, even though we have Magenta on NBI leading yellow and continuing to rise. We see a little bit of short activity, but Friday was a dip off. Right now, we're seeing a little bit more activity from that standpoint. But short-term buyers kind of reaching, their little peak area up here. They could go a little bit further. We'll see if that pivot stays in place throughout the day. But there wasn't a whole lot of excitement from the DOC here. When we look at the green, wasn't really moving a whole lot. You can see the shakeout's just beginning to do its turnaround. We'd had that first wave of shakeout gold, which was enough to keep things from caving when we ended up with a little bit of softness. But now we've sort of plateaued here, and we see the NBI blue about to catch up to it. Usually, when that finally does catch up, you get these kind of situations here where you get a little bit of a fade back into it. So we'll see how that plays out. But historically, that's typically how that goes. From an NQ, though, it was a little bit more positive, sort of driving things a little bit. And this is, again, the reference towards the idea that tech will, again, always lead us out of the doldrums and the malaise. But from the politics standpoint, that's where everyone's focused right now because that's really the determining factor on things. And can they drive down costs early enough? We already see some effect with the tariff situation where companies are already starting to talk about moving to the U.S. Now, in my mind, it's late. They should have started this last year, but what was it, Toyota or one of those other ones talking about moving from Mexico and that's the grand effect that over time will have a significant impact. Treasuries, nobody knows what to do there. Nobody, because it's, again, the Fed is going to continue to combat this because, again, they're going to misread the whole tariff construct and calling it inflationary. Of course, the inflationary numbers we all got and saw came from Biden's last months of spending, that they were just parking money anywhere they could, spending anything that they could, crazy numbers. But, it may not seem like a whole lot, but you cut the cuts that they've made from the federal workforce surprisingly been actually fairly deep, and they may actually remove most of what Biden added, and that would be a significant improvement. It's going to take a lot more than that, though, to really shift the tide. But here's the problem: oil. You're still up at this 70 plus level, and you got to be below 60 into the 50s before anything really makes a move towards at least some kind of stabilization, or even you might get a slight deflationary pressure in food and some of these other areas, but it's not going to be reflective at these numbers. So that's literally the breaking point right there. From a euro standpoint, they've been on the tear because of this supposed inflation, devaluation setup, but it's not going to last long because they're in a world of hurt. And of course, you got the German elections coming up. If they think that they could salvage their control over things through Germany, then maybe the euro will be able to bounce back. But their situation is dire, and whether they realize it or not, that's a different issue. Gold still holding on there. It was fun to watch some of the articles about Rand Paul and them suggesting that they audit the Fort Knox, see if the gold's there. No one's been in there since the 70s, and now they can't even find 7 or 8 of the 13 audits that have been done. They don't even know where they're at. It's like, how do you lose that? I don't even know. It's a hilarious thing. But we all know about the derivatives and also the apothecation that they use within the gold trade, and nobody knows if there's even a real value of the thing there. It might as well be a Bitcoin. If you're trading it on paper and that, then it doesn't really exist. So they can just, do what they do with mortgages and just subdivide them and keep subdividing them. From a Bitcoin standpoint, you got nothing happening here. Nothing happening with ETH as well. They're just in the sideline. It's going to take an impetus move of something dramatic taking place that's going to cause any of these to start having some kind of action. And if peace breaks out, and that everyone was talking about the excitement from a Trump trade and that, but as I was pointing out back then, that you get an exuberance, but again, a lot of this stuff isn't going to really have any impact until the later part of the year. So you're just going to be in what some people might think of as a malaise. It's not really going to cause the market to hyperdrive unless they get into really wild spending. And there's always that possibility. From a 50K standpoint, you can see there was nothing. no strength in shorts, no strength in buyers, and not a whole lot happened. And intraday, you can see it's just call buyer, put buyer, action back and forth. Nice from a volatility standpoint, just directionally, people are going to just be seeing sideways for a lot of period. Here in the post market, we had a nice little bump up in the European session. It faded off a bit. They're building back up again, but it looks like they've already topped out from that. So we could see another leg lower on it. And just continue to follow what it is and go from there and see if anything happens. It seems to me that the news cycle is going to be the driving force on a lot of these things. And the impact, though, broadly of whether or not the government really reduces the amount of spending it has, unemployment changes within the federal workforce, to some may seem like a negative, but in reality, shifting back to the private sector is always going to be better than the government spending side of it. So it's a win-win, even though it may cause a dip in actual GDP setups and that. We'll see how it plays out, though. As always, though, anything relevant, I'll put it on the Skype chat. Have a good one. Trade well.